Now, have you wondered where do startups net their own valuation from? We saw a major boom in startups across the country: startup bubble, Uni-corn, Deca-corns, money, the Silicon Valley, profit, high stakes, and a new era of entrepreneurship. These were some words that were heavily in use ever since the onset of the last decade or so. But sooner or later, it's all fizzling out, almost like slipping through the cracks from inside a tightly held fist. But why? Have you thought about the intriguing reasons why startups appear unfazed by their bottom line, prioritizing growth over profitability? But even as the startup landscape is shifting altogether, questions have come to the fore. Have the tables turned? And what's the impact on the future of innovation per se? Before 2023, India had some Deca-corns. Now it has none. What's more, in the year 2023, not one new unicorn has been added to the list of startups in India. So what went wrong with valuations of Indian startups? The real Shark Tank, where we expose the truth behind India's startup frenzy. Soaring valuations, elusive profits, but what's real and what's the hype is something that people still don't know. Get down in the comment sections and help us understand what you make of this eye-opening journey into the heart of startups. Amit, let's get the ball rolling here. Profitability not being important for these companies. I mean, somewhere in the documentary, a talking head says that, companies exist to make money, not lose money, right? So why are these new startups, undaunted in the face of no profit? I mean, I understand that there's a shortcut that they're using here, but this seems to be really scary. There's no profit, but you're continuing on with your work.
Yeah. Startup is a term that was not in common lexicon maybe even 10 years ago. These companies, which are called startups, they are trying to cover a huge amount of distance in a very short period of time. And that's why there are these rounds of funding that they need. They need valuations, and they need customers to build their database of customers. And customer acquisition either comes over time or comes at a price.
Right.
So in their case, it comes at a huge price that they have to pay. They have to pay. We gave the example of Fairchild Semiconductors. It was a loss-making company through decades, but it was an incubator of technology, and it survived those decades. Today, just few years ago, it was sold at north of $2.5 billion to a giant on semiconductors. That is PayPal. It was not a profit-making company. It has basically become synonymous with basically online payments,
right? Because
it was the first. Flipkart. It was not a profit-making company. Probably it is still not, but it is solving a problem for Walmart right now, which has basically taken it over and is willing to basically pay that price for that customer, keeping those customers. So while profitability may be something that you can achieve after some period of time, and if you are able to go through that, if you are solving a problem and if you are creating value, the catch is that you have to catch some of the value that you're creating. And that is
because that is what attracts the investors and your potential clients as well.
And that is why they have fallen short when even now valuations are going down. So profitability always, as much as I could understand.
No, but wait, hold on. One step, one punch, one round at a time. Profitability not being important is not wrong altogether, right?
It's excusable for a certain period of time.
For a certain period of time.
In case of startups.
But this period of time is also subjective here.
As long as value creation is happening, you are building your database, you are adding to your customer database over time, profitability is excusable.
All right. So now that we know that profit not being profitable is excusable as long as you're creating the right kind of value. Yes. Now, when you start comparing value creation vis-a-vis profitability, what's your take on that? Where does the Indian startup ecosystem stand at this critical juncture?
All of them are creating value. One of the companies that has been in the news of late in the edtech sector, they were pioneers in that. They created value, but edtech again, it was as one of our talking heads gave that example, that customer acquisition is very costly in that space. So most of them who are still around, they are creating value. Those who are not around, maybe after 10 years, you will know that they fell short of creating value. They fell short of profitability.
Right.
Because if they're not creating value, investors will not come. There's a very good quote I will take from one of our talking heads, that always go to companies where customer money is coming, because investor money comes to the companies where customer money is coming. So it's a good round sort of a circle, that if you're getting customer money, you're going to get investor money. But investor money will only come to companies where customer money is coming. So you have to get those customers, and customers come as long as value is being created.
But in 2023, that valuation has also gone down. We're looking at Shark Tank, the American version, the Shark Tank that we're seeing here in India. Do you think the episode and the series that we're seeing online and on the OTT platforms, on television, that has sort of like, it's not giving us the real picture? There's a lot of discrepancy in how actually startups fare in the market and what kind of episodes we see on television.
The Shark Tank show is an ideal platform where you have a set of venture capitalists, if I may use the term, they call themselves sharks, who are willing to put in money in a span of maybe after a presentation of maybe 5 minutes.
Right.
So that's an ideal scenario.
And
for
all these contestants that go on that show, they're also, I'm sure, thoroughly picked, and there's a proper screening process for all of them as well.
I'm sure that is.
So that means that is but the 5% of actual startups that we have in our country.
I'm sure it's a very small percentage.
Very small percentage.
They have a small season which lasts few months. So, and if in each episode they probably have.
And all of these contestants, from listening to the talking heads, listening to your viewpoints on this also, all of these startups are trying to use that shortcut, reach that farthest goal in a short amount of time. But you have to pay the price for that. What is the price that they're paying, and how dangerous is it for budding startups in today's time?
See, it's a it's a marketplace in transition.
Like Mohandas Pai says in the documentary, he says, well, everybody wants to be rich, and what's wrong with that?
Like we discussed, this word came into common lexicon only maybe a decade and a half ago. So it's a new market, and it's extremely competitive. And because it's extremely competitive, customer acquisition and the cost of customer acquisition and getting ahead becomes that much more difficult. So that is why in the initial stages, if profitability is excusable, it's all right. Value creation has to be there. And while you said that values have gone down this year, if you allow me, if you indulge me, I can give you the comparisons of the unicorns that have happened this year vis-a-vis the last year.
Absolutely,
in India.
do go on.
In India, we have had 0. Last year, we had 21 new unicorns.
In 2022? All right.
Since January 2023, first half, not a single unicorn has been added to that list. If you take the sum total of the whole world, there were 349 added in 2022. It came down to 44.
Globally. None in India, however.
None in India. European Union, 54 last year, just 8 this year. North America, 201 last year, 21 this year. North of 20 this year. Asia, 83 last year, 14. None of them in India. So it has come down throughout. There's a liquidity crunch. The interest rates are rising. The money has been sucked out.
These are potential factors behind the devaluation.
These are the factors, one of the factors. Then there is turmoil in the whole world. There's an oil crisis. There is a war going on because of which prices of certain commodities are up.
Right, certainly.
There's a looming recession. And there are interest rates going up. Most of the countries and blocks are basically struggling with controlling inflation. So that is why liquidity is down. Maybe it will turn around once liquidity is up and there's more market, and the valuations will come up again.
Well, certainly. What are current market trends today, and how do they impact various startups? I've been looking at you doing a lot of news on Byju's. In terms of edtech, Byju's is one of those top names, and it seems like they're having some sort of difficulties themselves.
No, Byju's is a unique case. Probably in their quest for customer acquisition and market penetration, they probably overspent.
Just like the cashback that PayPal used, and today Paytm and all these, cashback is the word. It's synonymous with online payment.
Not just cashback, they basically had to grow their brand. So they hired the best of brand ambassadors in Shah Rukh Khan. They were sponsoring the Indian cricket team. So probably they spent a little bit more than...
got a little carried away.
Carried away.
Carried away.
They are on course to their turnaround. And they were market leaders in a space that they probably created in India, EdTech.
And they also acquired a lot of smaller fish in the sea
companies,
as well.
Akash Byju's was an acquisition. So that was one
Greater
of
learning.
Yeah. So the White Hat Junior.
Right.
So these were some of the acquisitions they did. But that is one unique case. Venture capitalists are also becoming more circumspect while at the time of doling out cash to these startups. And that is one, and that is all a factor of basically the liquidity crunch that is happening in the marketplace for all the reasons that we have already listed down.
If I could put you on the spot here, and your experience and your expertise, if I were to put that to the test, and you can choose to refrain from answering this as well. As somebody who covers business news, can you make any kind of predictions for the second half of this year? Are we going to see any new corns being added to the list?
I am hopeful. I am hopeful, and I hope it happens. And we are probably the worst is past us, and that is something that one of our talking heads also mentioned. So I am very hopeful that some startups will happen in the other 6 months, 5 months that are left of this year. Also because the rise in interest rates has at least come to a pause, at least in some parts of the West. So that will probably there'll be more money in the market that these startups can go after, and their valuations then will go, and they can spend it for their customer acquisition and value creation and market penetration exercises. So there will be more money in the markets, valuations will go up, and unicorns
There were some
happen.
examples in the documentary: Facebook, Google, YouTube, Instagram, and how Instagram and YouTube had homes in Facebook, Meta, and Google. What was different for them then? What is different for startups today? Why are they in such a thriving position? Because we've seen movies on Google and Facebook as well. On Mark Zuckerberg's life, you've got autobiographies out there, and they've made their fair share of mistakes, and they have overspent as well. What is it that we've got different?
Then is not too far away. There was at the turn of the centuries when YouTube and Google happened. So it's not too long ago. They were not profitable when they started out, but they was one, solving a problem, two, they were creating value, and three, the customers they could basically challenge the customer imagination, who basically thrived onto their platforms in droves.
They also banked on the fact that it was just the advent of social media that they were riding high on.
And they came out with very innovative products. So, and
we're still using Facebook
yes,
and Instagram.
And then they found basically a cushion in these big companies that took them over and gave them that leeway to spend, to experiment, to innovate, lose if they have to for a time, just so that they can basically win in the long run. And look at where all the names that you took, where are they now? And I think we are in that phase right now. 5 years down the line, most of these companies will be basically poster boys of the startup universe in whichever space they have created for themselves, in India and abroad. It is the right time for Indian unicorns to basically Indian startups to take on the world. That is going to happen. I believe that's going to happen sooner than we expect.
Is it a case of people, getting confused between what is value creation and what is money making? Because a lot of people who step out into this venture of, let's, build a new startup, let's start with a new startup, let's put our money here, let's look for investors. You've got a crazy new idea, man, let's open up a startup. Hey man, that sounds like a really cool idea, let's start a startup. Why do you want to start a startup? Not because you want to create value in other people's lives, but because you want to yourself become rich. These two things must go hand in hand. If they're devoid of each other, then I think it's a recipe for disaster. Or do I have it wrong here?
You cannot become rich if you're not basically catering to a space that has been left vacant in the marketplace. So if there was a space for market for online education, because there was a space, somebody who wanted to become rich, if we have to use that terminology, came up with a product. gave value to its customers who basically liked it and then basically came in more numbers. And that is how he or she became rich if they did. So the
which
value
essentially
has,
means
a
they're
problem
both
has to be
indirect,
solved.
right?
Yes.
They're both directly connected.
Yes.
What I'm saying is, how about I start a new edtech company, but the idea is, well, creating value can take the back seat here. My focus is going to be getting in the right kind of money. And that, I think, is going to be like shooting yourself in the foot.
Unless you have an innovative product, and that's where
I mean, of course, if your product is the utopian product, then there is no denying that you will be the next billionaire on this planet. But
I'll give you an example of something that I read somewhere, and I have not seen a better example, definition of a startup. A startup is the smallest group of people you can convince to plan to build a different future. A different future is where your innovation comes in. Startups are basically in incubation chambers for a new idea. If that works, venture capitalists and bigger companies will lap it up.
Certainly.
And you will get the cushion. These startups get the cushion to basically expand.
Why is it that
on that
startups
idea.
are so happy with being, sucked in and acquired by these bigger fishes, the bigger fish, the sharks in general? These smaller fish are happy that the shark come in and take us over.
It gives them the latitude to basically expand and experiment more. If you have more money, you can experiment.
But then the control goes to the other, the bigger shark.
It does. But those bigger sharks still need the minds of these startup entrepreneurs.
And the startups also, because of their
idea.
overspending, go to a position, reach a position where they are pressured into, then selling their, company off because they need the money as well.
See, a bigger fish allows you to fail and start off again.
All right.
If you have limited money, that latitude is not there.
All right. And this cash on tap analogy that you were talking about,
we just mentioned liquidity is not there. So there was a time when venture capitalists were basically doling out cash to anybody with a slightly innovative idea that caught the imagination of the venture capitalists and the market. That situation is not right now. The venture capitalists and banks and angel investors are very much more circumspect. They are looking at bottom lines now, profitability, customer acquisitions, market penetration,
so it's high time.
Brand.
It's high time that these startups start worrying about their bottom lines.
They've already started.
They've already started.
This
honeymoon period.
That cycle has already begun.
Let's just wrap
Those
this
wheels are
conversation up. I don't want the viewers to be left waiting. I really want them to take a look at the second episode as well, so that they can connect the dots as to why the devaluations now in 2023, why no unicorns. But just to wrap it up, this unicorn and startup honeymoon period, is this over now? Is this a situation of a bubble burst, or is this a pure reality check?
I think it's a phase. When liquidity goes up, I think that phase will turn around again. Maybe not to the extent that it was last few years, but it will turn around again. Right now, there are basically extraneous factors that are affecting this space right now. So, factors which nobody has control over, whether it's a war, whether it's the oil situation, whether it's a looming recession, interest rates going up, money being sucked out, all of that. So but I believe once the liquidity situation eases out, the situation will turn around again.
But the bottom line still remains that there is no replacement for value creation.
No replacement for innovation, no replacement for value creation.
And if you have the product that puts across the right kind of information, can convince, like you said, a small group of people that it is adding the right kind of value in your life, well, then there's no price on it. It becomes priceless, doesn't it?
It becomes priceless.
It bemes priceless. Well,
nailed it.
Many thanks for joining with us here, Amit. I hope I have nailed it, and I hope Indian startups also start nailing it in the second half of this year.
Yes.
Fingers crossed, and we can only hope that good sense prevails. On that note, we're going to wrap this up. The second episode is out. It's out today. I think the real Shark Tank was out last night. Do watch it. We're of course giving you a free preview, but if you want to share it across, we're now on various streaming services. We're now available on the television, on your mobile phones. Do download the News9 Plus application for other incisive analysis and cutting edge documentaries as well.